by those people? Can you
The people from different countries that are not friendly to us and countries that are out of control themselves. Countries like Somalia that have virtually no government, no military, no police. All they do is go around killing each other. Then they come into our country and tell us how to run our country. We don't want them.
What are you talking about?
You got to talk up.
She said how many countries?
Is there a list?
Well, I guess we gave you 19, right? There's probably more than that.
Is that what you mean when you mean?
So this is Donald Trump last week talking to reporters, and he flat out says, we don't want them. And he was specifically referring to Somalis and what is going on over inside of Minneapolis. Also places like New Jersey and Ohio. Ohio actually has the second largest concentration of Somalis here in the United States. And believe it or not, the Somalis actually think that Minneapolis belongs to them. There's a video that's floating around online that's basically encouraging them and showing them that no, Somalis ended up discovering this land and it's their freaking right. And they discovered it. It doesn't belong to the American people, basically, is what they're trying to convince people. And there's folks trying to fly in from all around the world now to rally around the Somalis because of this crap right here in a video that ended up getting put out online. Can't make that stuff up. Additionally, we have some other issues that are going on. So Ron Mandami, before he even ends up getting into office, is already getting looked at by the Assistant U.S. Attorney General for some statements in another video that he ended up coming out and making. And personally, I think he ended up misleading American people and they might get arrested for it. And I think that's probably why U.S. Assistant Attorney General is looking into it. Always last in line coming in, gifting out a Speak the Truth membership before we get started. And Howard Faust coming in, gifting out one as well. And Knack Dad in here, gifting out 99 cents. So let's go ahead and take a look at just how pissed off Americans are. And I'll tell you this story right here that I'm about to put up on the screen, because I do believe it is what is kind of like the crux of the situation is Americans are getting tired of being told what to do by people who have immigrated to this country, leaving the crap holes that they came from, and now want to change the United States of America and have defrauded it. Inside of the United States of America, the largest fraud scheme ever to have taken place against U.S. taxpayer dollars came out of the Somali community over inside of Minneapolis. And people are tired of this crap. Now, this lady right here that I'm about to put up on the screen, I'm not going to lie, I don't condone the words that she ended up using in this situation. But just because I don't condone the words I'm about to show you that she's using doesn't mean I don't understand her frustration in them. Fox McCloud coming in says that's that low IQ problem they're talking about. Yeah, no kidding when you go low IQ. Morning, Matt. Coffee check? Yeah, brother. You know I got my coffee here. Don't you worry about it. I am drinking that coffee. Thank you, brother. All right, so let's listen to what this lady has to say, and then I'm going to tell you guys what ended up happening. Now, what you're taking a look at is inside of a Cinnabon. Now, before this camera turned on, allegedly, the people that are the customers in this situation were asking for some extra caramel or some crap like that. And then they started giving this lady crap about not wearing a hijab and not having her hair and everything else covered. And then they start rolling the video because she started to get irate. And then they blasted this video around social media and ended up getting this lady fired. You are not going to believe the amount of money. I put on the thumbnail, $92K. It's way above $92K now that this lady has raised after she ended up getting fired. Give it a listen.
Sexualizing your body makes you a better person.
Are you recording?
I'm going to record you. Yes.
Do you want me to throw water on you? I am racist.
So idiot, for
And
real.
you are an
idiot. No,
I
I'm
am
not.
racist, and I'll say that to the whole entire world. Don't be disrespectful.
You ruin your life, by the way.
Oh, you talk about respect? You talking about respect? You are fired from this place, man. You're not going to be working here. Suck what? Look how you talking about ugliness.
She ends up dropping the N-word numerous times towards these people after they are harassing her about not wearing a hijab and a couple of other things. And she's like, kiss my butt. And she comes out and says, I am racist and I am tired of this crap. She's like, I'm tired of getting told I'm not allowed to do this stuff. I'm tired of being told that, like, how to dress, whatever. And she ends up dropping the N-word. And check this out. Now, again, I do not support the lady using that language. Obviously, wipe your butt with that hijab. Yeah, exactly. That, I think, is like the feeling of most Americans, which is why I go back and I say, like, look, when Trump was saying we don't want them, he wasn't kidding. And I think the American people have actually got behind this woman and have provided evidence in support to that basis that we don't want them here in the United States. Because when she opened her mouth and she went to town, y'all, I can't make this stuff up. This is her Give, Send, Go account. Her goal was 109,000 US dollars, apparently. Excuse me. Tom Hennessy ended up creating this. Right now, it's up to 101,000, almost $102,000. Like right up over here in the top corner of the screen, you guys can see almost $102,000 have been raised for this woman for basically telling them to kiss off and that she's tired of this crap. She's basically turned into like this new rallying cry, kind of like that lady that was over in the park, which in that case, I really don't support that woman, but ended up raising a buttload of money all within itself. And so now it's to the point where, you know what, if Americans end up dropping the N-word, if the Americans end up just standing up for things that they don't think is right, regardless of how racist they're being, people in America are supporting them. Now, I don't think that everybody that's donating money to this lady is racist. And truthfully, I could be wrong here, but I doubt this lady is actually racist. I would think that she's just fed up with how everything's going in this country. Like that is a sign, in my opinion, of frustration. And you don't get $100,000 poured into a freaking donation link like that just from that. And I see like some of you guys are saying that you guys donated to her. Like it's wild to see this come out, but I don't think it has anything to do with like racist words or anything like that ended up coming out of her mouth. I think it got to do with things like this. Like people are just tired of this crap. This is a no kidding like advertisement for Somalis for why the great land of Minneapolis belongs to them.
They said the North was frozen, empty, unforgiving. But 3 centuries ago, our mothers and fathers followed a promise across the ocean. Somali hands opening a new map. Somali hearts reading the sky. Here they found a land of rivers and stars.
You hear that? Somalis opening the map. Somalis go in there. They ended up finding the land of rivers and stars. All of that crap. They really do believe that this land belongs to them, or at least they're trying to convince their own that it does.
They named it the way the wind whispered, Minnesota. They said the North was...
They named it Minnesota. They are the ones that named it Minnesota. You hear that? The Somalis are the ones that ended up naming it Minnesota. Battlefield Boys says, can I self-identify as a Somali so I can get some money? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't want to do it right now. You know, a couple of years ago, you should have probably been good doing that. They would have covered for you. You could have ran a like elaborate fraud scheme. Let's see here. Who is this? Undercover? I can't even read your name's too long. It's not showing me. But he says, oh, stop it. He says, what does Trump and MAGA think about his favorite country, Russia, in supporting Venezuela and the drug smuggling to the U.S.? Well, I don't think, truthfully, I don't think Trump's favorite country is Russia. As a matter of fact, I think the entire reason we are going down into Venezuela has absolutely nothing to do with the drugs. If you look at Venezuela and the amount of drugs that come out of Venezuela and into the United States, it is fractional compared to what pours across our border from Mexico, pours across our border from several other locations. Like Venezuela is at the bottom of the list. I actually think that Russia intervention over inside Venezuela, along with Chinese and Iranian intervention over inside Venezuela, or how do you want to say, not intervention, but commingling, is one of the main reasons why we're going down there. Hell, if you even look at Nigeria, you know, Trump ended up bringing up Nigeria and saying, well, you know what, over inside of Nigeria, all of these Christians are being massacred. Well, he just had al-Shura in the White House, who has been massacring Christians inside of Syria for years. So it's not about massacring of Christians. That's for dang sure. But what ended up happening over in Nigeria was we had China move in. Elon Musk lost a bid to mine lithium over inside of Nigeria. And then the next year, they end up giving the bid to China. And so now China has a huge foothold in Nigeria. And all of a sudden, the United States has interest in Christians being killed over in Nigeria. And then same thing when we look down inside Venezuela. Now we're concerned about drugs in Venezuela. It's like we find these little minuscule issues where we're not equal the same acting across the board. Like Mexico obviously is a huge problem for drugs. And so I think, and Timbo, I really appreciate, or not Timbo, whoever it was that asked that question, I really appreciate it because it brings to light, you know, what the U.S. is actually doing. And we're using different things in our toolkit, in my opinion, in order to combat it. Timbo Slice says, we're watching our society as we know it collapse. Imagine how they would treat Americans if we went to Somalia and tried changing their way of life. Dude, Somalis can't even change their way of life. Somalis can't even change their way of life. Somalis don't even have like a recognized international border between them and Ethiopia. Like it's not a joke. If I go over to Google Maps and open this thing up right now, here, let me do it for you. Because I don't know why people just don't know this. If I go over to Google Maps and open that sucker up, oh, stop it. Freaking why did Yahoo take over my browser? I hate it when it does that. But if I go over to Somalia, and this is just Google Maps, right? Like, I want to be very clear about this. This is Google Maps. If you guys look, it has like the largest border, I'm pretty sure, in the entire world that is just not known. It's a huge little like transit area. You guys can see it there. Is it Ethiopia or is it Somalia? We don't know because they've been battling over it forever. And you guys are about to hear more reasons why the Somalis are coming here to the United States. They're actually taking US dollars, no kidding, and raising militias. Like people are moving to the United States of America, taking US taxpayer dollars, funding militias overseas in an attempt to gain control and run for presidential office. Incog Verde coming in and gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate you very much, friend. I really, really do. And again, Somalians 1000% are like declaring war as far as I'm concerned.
My biggest fear in life is that this man may never witness our full takeover. Yes, he may never witness that. He already witnessed our partial takeover, our little success in America. And he is the reason, actually, I know that the community in America is thriving. He is how I know. It's like, he's how we measure our progress. If he doesn't tweet, somebody messed up. I know it. Somebody fucked up the plan. If he tweet, I know. I know we're doing the right things. Yes, that's how I know. So, he's old and sick, I know. He may not witness our full takeover, but I promise you that his sons will witness. Just like him, we came to exist in this country.
He promises that Trump's sons will witness it. Maybe not in Trump's lifetime, but it's going to happen. Danner Local says Ilhan Omar's father was partially responsible for some evil stuff over inside of Somalia. How is he even alleged to seek refugee status here? Yeah, that's a really good question, right? Like, he was high ranking inside of the military as all that crap was taking place over there. And he ended up fleeing over into, what country was it? Was it Kenya? I think maybe he fled into Kenya. He fled into some African country, lived there for a couple of years and applying for asylum in the United States. And then he ended up getting taken in here. And I was really shocked when I started to look into like the CBP1 app, and I started looking into the process on how everything goes with, like, I think it was like 1.2 mil or something like that. Ended up applying via the CBP1 app, but 900,000 were actually allowed to enter into the United States of America using the CBP1 app. And only, I think, 250,000 so far have actually been granted their refugee status. And 40% of those that end up getting granted interviews actually get given refugee status. Okay, so I want you to think about this. We allow people into the United States of America when they claim asylum. We allow people into the United States of America before their packets are fully screened that what they're saying is true. It's a fact. We look at the face value of it and say, okay, yep, you can enter into the United States, and then we'll give you your court hearing at a later date. We don't really vet these people and go through all of their paperwork to determine whether or not they're being persecuted by their government, whether or not they're being like tortured and all of this other crap. We just let them come in. And so if you want to know how, Ilhan Omar's father was allowed to come here to the United States of America, well, that's how. The United States doesn't like properly vet these asylum requests before they end up coming in. I want you to think about that. 900,000 out of 1.2. So some of the people maybe just, I would assume that they just didn't properly complete the paperwork that was on the app. I would assume that everybody else basically was given access to the United States of America. And then they sit here for years. And then when they're denied, they can appeal it, and they can appeal it, and they can appeal it, and they can appeal it before they're ever issued like their deportation. Hell, even after they're issued their order of deportation, they're going to end up appealing it. Like the vast majority of people illegally here in the United States of America end up appealing their deportation orders when they end up coming through. So that's how, if you're asking. Danner Local says it's like Himmler seeking refugee from Nazi Germany. Yeah, that is exactly. Mork Rogue says they trash around the hardest when they know they are losing. It's part of Islamic culture. They find theatrics convincing. Yes, that's exactly what ends up happening. And I hate to say it. Well, actually, no, I don't hate to say it. It's the truth. Like their main like push for their like Islamic crap ends up coming out of Palestine, where you see the most theatrics. Let's finish up what this young man has to say.
See, the land of free men, the land of opportunities. And we're here. Yes. And we're not leaving, actually. We're not going back. What do you mean go back? You should go back first. You see, if you come first, you go first. See, just like you. Tell me how you own this land. Explain to the world how this land became your land.
Well, we moved here, we fought a big war for it, and it's internationally recognized. That's how it's our land, you crooked nut job. And so the only way that you're going to take that land from the United States of America is via war. So good luck.
The world.
You guys see the issue here? You guys do see the issue, right? Rogue as in red. Oh, my bad. My bad. What was I saying? What did I say? Mort Rogue. What did I say, man? My bad. I'm sorry, I got your name wrong. That's my bad. Now, this is one of the things when it goes down to fraud that I think you guys really need to pay attention to. Carl Higbie, Newsmax ended up bringing on this guest, and you guys, you have to hear this crap. You want to talk about like money being sent over to like overseas and massive amounts of fraud? Here you go.
Let's introduce you to Somali American Abdullah Ali, who came to the U.S. from Somalia in 2009. You're looking at, obviously, the man on my right who had discovered this story. He became a U.S. citizen, started a nonprofit to help immigrants, started several businesses, including a multi-million-dollar migrant care service agency. And in 2024, he ran for president as he raised money to bankroll a militia in Somalia. Yes, you heard that right. A U.S. citizen who, according to the Main Wire, gave an interview with Kenyan media in which he said he raised money in the U.S. to buy weapons, munitions, and supplies for paramilitary force he had hoped to lead as the president of Jubaland. Yes, that is a real state in Somalia. He was running for president in Somalia.
Yeah. You guys heard all of that right. Man ended up raising money here in the United States, building a militia over in Somalia so that he could end up running for government over there with his militia that he built off of US dollars. Timbo Sly says, now I know. My point was that we should start fast as they did and show them what this land means to us, especially as they bring up our children. 1,000%. 1,000%. And I think, and that echoes right back to what I brought up earlier on in this program when I was talking about that lady and her racist rhetoric. And yet still she's getting, over $100,000 right now, probably going to be north of like $500,000 by the end of the day, because people are tired of this crap in this country. It's not that everybody in America is racist. No, we're just tired of people telling us to wear hijabs. This is the United States of freaking America.
Of course, he lost the election. We reached out to the Gateway Community Services in Maine, which Ali founded, did not hear back, ironically enough. The man who broke this report, editor-in-chief of the Maine Wire, Steve Robinson, dude, this is crazy.
You really can't make this stuff up. I mean, the guy's running a migrant services agency that bills MaineCare, which is what we call Medicaid, about $5 million a year. At the same time that he's running for president, and to be clear,
in Somalia,
that he's running to be the warlord of Jubaland. Elections in Jubaland aren't exactly like elections in America.
Bingo.
It's whoever has the most guns is able to certify the election. So he needed to buy a paramilitary organization and paramilitary support in order to win that election, and he lost it. But at the very same time that he was in Jubaland and Kenya trying to become a warlord in southern Somalia, he was getting no bid contracts from the administration of Governor Janet Mills, a Democrat who has been in cahoots with Gateway Community Services from the very beginning. So if there's one thing that I would implore your listeners.
That was probably one of the most important truth bombs that he dropped out of the entire thing, is he was in Somalia, raising his militia and running around trying to take over as warlord of the area. He was being given no bid contracts by the state government. No bid contracts by the state government as he's running around over inside of Somalia. Your head should explode when you hear that information.
To understand, it's in Minnesota and in Maine. It's not just the Somali diaspora that has come over here and decided to engage in this criminal behavior. It's an industrial complex with the Democratic Party that enables and turns a blind eye to this behavior because they benefit from it through political support. And indeed, Abdullahi Ali's number two, his assistant executive director, is the former mayor of South Portland, Maine, and is currently a state representative from South Portland and a member of the Appropriations Committee, Decca DeLocke, one of his.
So there you go. His partner in crime, as far as I'm concerned, is a state rep. This goes right back to the same stuff that I was talking about last week with those two nonprofit organizations that ended up forming a program. And then the guy that formed the program for the nonprofit organizations, who was lobbying for the nonprofit organizations, ended up becoming a state rep over inside of Minnesota, and then increases the funding, right, through tax credits, increases the amount of money, increases the amount of people that can qualify, and starts scamming and ripping people off, as far as I'm concerned, over inside of Minnesota. And they're using the same mosque to recruit these people out of, who they're scamming, as far as I'm concerned, based on what I've read, who they're scamming. They're using the same mosque as the Feed Our Future program did. It's all connected, ladies and gentlemen. It's very clearly all connected, where you have not just an insurrection, but you have people in the state governments in both Minnesota and up over here in Maine that are taking taxpayer dollars, giving it to people who, in my mind, there is no way they couldn't have known where it was going to be going. And then just wishing it away and pretending like it's not a problem. Meanwhile, Americans are struggling to get by. Americans are struggling to pay their bills. Americans are struggling to put food on their table. Americans are getting underbid by illegal immigrants. And then we have other people that are rising up into power inside of this country that are pushing socialism, pushing communism, pushing all of this crap on the American public. And every single time the United States government tries to do something about it, they accuse them of being Nazis, they accuse them of being radicals, they accuse them of being all sorts of things, when really all we want is a safe United States of America, where all of our freaking money isn't getting sent to, like, hell with even what like USAID gives away. How about your state dollars? Money coming in from the federal government that should be going to benefit members of your states, going overseas to freaking Somalia and building militias.
Former employees, Yusuf is a representative from Portland. Many Gateway Community Services alums have gone on to become involved in politics, and Governor Janet Mills created the Office of New Americans specifically to cater to the new Americans, new Mainers, illegal aliens. And the only employee of that organization is Alkas Ahmed from Sudan, who is a former employee of Gateway Community Services.
I wish I had more time for this, but you're on a roll. Basically, long story short, is Maine's got a bunch of fraud with people taking money from the government and the taxpayers and then buying rocket launchers, sending them back to run for elections and president of whatever that place is. Jubaland. And then they're also turning around and getting out the vote for Democrats in places like Lewiston, Maine and Portland, Maine. Yeah, and when you drive into Maine, there's a big sign that says Maine, the way life should be. Not the way I see it. Steve Robinson.
How freaking insane is that? Adam DLC says, we are sending money. Are we still sending money to the Taliban? Yeah, Adam, we are. We are. And that money, it comes from seized money that we have taken from the Taliban during the global war on terror. And now we're releasing it back to them. Meanwhile, as far as I'm concerned, they have plants that ended up coming over on SIV paperwork. Some of them didn't even freaking have it. Coming back into this country and conducting terror attacks. Like, that should blow your mind. The guy from Dallas-Fort Worth area had flat out stated that he was going to be targeting anybody that goes against the Taliban or Afghanistan. Now, mind you, he said the Taliban, not just Afghanistan or Afghans. He said the Taliban. And yeah, we're still sending money over there. Ought to make you sick to your stomach. KYON, Con 165 says, have you seen crazy interference Hassan Piker has been running for them? Dude even provided material support to terrorists on camera. Yes, he has been. And it's freaking disgusting. R. White says, my Gordon clone is ready for service. Effing Irene. Yeah, Irene, baby. Irene. It's about that time. Like, you're not lying there at all. At all. Mander Rander or Mander Dander says, what is worse, the headline in the news here is that Trump is a racist for saying Europe is overran. They claim it's untrue. Weird. And the riots then. Yeah, no, the UK is absolutely overran. Trump's not racist for stating that. And the UK is out of control within itself. I just watched a judge over in the UK sentencing a man for like 6 months for horrible words that he ended up speaking online. God forbid. No, not Maine. The UK is absolutely overran. Absolutely overran. You guys, like, there's Jewish people that get kicked out of certain areas because there's too many Muslims there, and that their sheer presence could be a provocation. That they could be disturbing the peace just for being Jewish and walking in an area that's overran with Muslims. That person can get arrested. Or if I'm Christian holding a holy Bible and I say Muhammad's a false prophet, I can get arrested for that. Even though that's my religious belief. I'm apparently inciting violence if I go over there and do that. It's absolutely absurd that has to happen. Like, it's absurd. Incog Faraday says Massachusetts has polluted southern New Hampshire and Maine. Oh, believe me, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, Incog. Don't you worry about it. Some guy on the web, 268 likes, 1.2 thousand viewings. Smash the like button like it came to the U.S. illegally and stole your job. Because most certainly it probably did, right? And if you don't believe that's true, wait till you hear a little bit, because I wish you would have made that comment in about 5 minutes, because I've got something on that one too. Mamdani, he decided that he needs to move into the mayor's palace over inside of New York now. And over this weekend ended up dropping this lovely piece of propaganda, which ended up catching the attention of the Assistant U.S. Attorney General.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home. But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights. If you encounter ICE, these are the things that every New Yorker should know.
Okay, Mamdani is going to school us on what your rights are. Who thinks that this is going to be a very well-worded video in which other people might listen to and actually take part in and take action of his advice that might actually get them arrested? Let's check it out.
First, ICE cannot enter into private spaces like your home, school, or a private area of your workplace without a judicial warrant signed by a judge.
Not entirely true. That is not entirely true. I just want to let you guys know that is not entirely true.
That looks like this. If ICE does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you have the right to say, I do not consent to entry.
That is false in so many different cases that have been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court. There is many situations which ICE can and will enter your house without a signed warrant or your place of business. That is just a fact. They don't have to have a warrant signed by a judge, just like your local law enforcement officers don't have to have a warrant signed by a judge. There's this little pesky thing in the law called exigency and hot pursuit. Both of those things would allow them to do that. Already, he's off to a bad start. Chrisser says a pawn shop near my house was selling tons of machetes because they had so many Haitians coming wanting to buy guns. Oh, Chrissers, I didn't tell you about when I was over inside of Kenya and you ended up having like political riots because of an election and people are running around with machetes, chopping people's arms and heads off over there. Like machetes in crowds is very much a huge African thing. And so, like, I'm not even sure maybe if that just has to do with Haitians coming. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just Haitians. But I'm telling you right now, like, when I was over inside Kenya, dude, they were running around slicing freaking heads off. So I'm just throwing that out there. Anyways, let's keep up with Mamdani's horrible advice.
The right to keep your door closed. Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this.
Yeah. Let's take a look at that paperwork, right? As you go across and you take a look at it. It's a warrant of removal deportation. That would be a warrantless arrest. Them basically saying that this individual needs to get arrested, and here's why. And then they end up signing it. Their supervisor ends up signing off on it, and then it all goes in. So basically, the report and the check the block paperwork, that's technically immigration warrant for arrest.
And tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is false.
That's false. They absolutely have the right to arrest you without this piece of paperwork. They can arrest you with no prior knowledge, just bumping into you on the street, not even having any paperwork whatsoever, and just based off of their investigation from a consensual contact that they end up building, they can put you in handcuffs and haul you away. And here is Mamdani trying to tell people of New York that they can't go and pick them up. That is a lie. Listen to it again, start to finish. I'll let him run through it without interrupting. I'll just let him go.
You have the right to say, I do not consent to entry, and the right to keep your door closed. Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this and tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is false. ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, am I free to go, repeatedly until they answer you. You are legally allowed to film ICE as long as you do not interfere with an arrest. It is important to remain calm during any interaction with ICE or law enforcement. Do not impede their investigation, resist arrest, or run. One last thing. New Yorkers have a constitutional right to protest.
Do not impede their investigation. Like, I don't even know if this man understands that ICE isn't required. If they have a warrant to enter your home, they don't have to show you paperwork. Neither does any other law enforcement agency on the frickin' planet. They state it. At no time ever. And common sense here will tell you why. Do they have to stand there, hand you a piece of paperwork, and tell you to read over it, and after you get done reading, if you agree, allow me to enter the building? At no time ever in any form of law enforcement is that ever acceptable. You know why? Because they can get shot. Do you think on a no-knock warrant that they end up putting a freaking warrant on like the head of the freaking ram that they use to bust through the door, or that they break out a window and throw a crumpled up piece of paper through the window and go, read the warrant, we're coming in? No. They also don't have to tell you why they pulled you over. They also don't have to tell you what it is they stopped and detained you for. And as the only thing basically that he got right in this video is they are allowed to lie to you. They are. But that has been affirmed by the courts of the United States of America. Because of that, because of how ridiculous this video is, I ended up seeing this today. This is the Assistant Attorney General, Harmeet Dillon. All right? Assistant U.S. Attorney General. And Jason Miller ended up putting out that video by Mamdani and says, Mamdani tells immigrants, New Yorkers, about their right not to comply with ICE. She just says, oh, really? Now, for those of us who have followed her for a while, know that that means Mamdani likely is about to come under investigation because of this. And if you go through and you look at some of these ones, like, you're going to find a lot. Time to arrest him, blah, 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 blah. Here you go. You may not know it yet, but you are toast. You joined the 2-word response tweet club by Harmeet Dillon. They're going to get him. Like, he's done. Like, you can't mislead the public like that. Tor 30A. 45 million flown into Kabul this morning ends up with Taliban through bribes or seizures from aid groups. Sigar's latest report, broken system where the Taliban skims off the top. Dude, that is nothing new. That's nothing new. The Taliban had been skimming off the top. So people often get this wrong. People often cite the largest source of income for the Taliban was drugs, via heroin, via poppy fields, via all of that crap. Their largest source of income was drugs. And that was true until the big army, till the big green weenie ended up moving into Afghanistan. Once the big green weenie moved into Afghanistan, the largest source of income for the Taliban was stealing supplies that were on their way to U.S. bases. We would hire local national truck drivers. They would put them on their trucks. A lot of it would come in through Pakistan. You'd have it ripped off through the Pakistani Taliban. You'd have it ripped off through the Taliban as it comes in. You'd have it ripped off via the Haqqani network. Ask any U.S. soldier or any U.S. service member who is over there that had to use a 55-gallon fuel drum to refuel a generator, how much water was in the bottom of those fuel drums. That wasn't because there's leaks in the fuel drums. That was because of the amount that was siphoned off, and they'd put water in it, and it would push the water down to the bottom. The fuel would go up to the top. We ended up having to take our pumps, like our little hand crank freaking pumps I was at, we would have refueling trucks that would come in, and these refueling trucks would have like had all of their stuff stolen. The Taliban stealing money, the Taliban doing that stuff, there is no reason for the United States to have ever believed, not at one single point in time, that we would have somehow magically not been dealing with fraud and the Taliban getting a hold of money that should have just been going over to everybody else. I want you guys to listen to this. This is the mayor of Minneapolis.
I wanted to get your take on the fraud case that has created political shockwaves in your state. Federal prosecutors have charged dozens of people in connection with an alleged scheme to steal money from a food charity for children. According to the New York Times, some of them are linked to the Democratic Party and others are members of the Somali community. The administration is seizing on the controversy to question the credibility of prominent lawmakers in the state, including Governor Tim Walz. What's your reaction to what's been coming out?
The fraud that occurred is real. At this point, it's not just alleged. People have indeed been convicted. They were stealing money from kids that was supposed to go to food that would feed them. People were stealing money that should have gone towards housing stabilization. And when that happens, you prosecute, you charge, you hold the person accountable, and they go to jail as individuals. They go to jail as individuals because you should rise based on your own merit. You should fall based on your own flaws. The entire community of Somalis or any other community.
You should rise on your own merit. That's right. And out of the projected 80,000-ish Somalis that are over inside of Minneapolis, you have the largest fraud scheme of all time to take place to come out of that particular community. And the people that were arrested for it, the people that ended up getting arrested for these billions of dollars worth of money taken, predominantly by and large, well over 90% end up being Somalis. So you explain to me, because at that point in time, it's no longer something that you can look at and you can say, you know, maybe, just maybe, we're targeting a particular group of individuals. No, you have to look at the culture where they come from. You know, the culture over inside of Somalia, where like 99% of the females in that country have fallen subject to FMG or female genital or FGM, female genital mutilation. The vast majority, 99% of them, genital mutilation occurs inside of Somalia. The overwhelming vast majority suffer from genital mutilation. And if that is the mentality that's floating around that society over there, why is it so hard to believe that particulars about that mentality have been brought forward to the United States of America, and it is not within the culture of the United States to be willing to accept it? And the United States isn't the only country on the planet. Let's be real. There's plenty of other countries in the world that these people can go to. They don't have to go to the United States. That's why Trump had like the first country doctrine or whatever it was that he developed, where you had people flooding up from South America, flooding from China, using the Belt and Road Initiative that ended up going through Mexico and being like, we're here to claim asylum. Well, if it was so bad that you left China and you made it to Venezuela and then worked your way all the way up through South America into Mexico before entering the United States illegally just to claim asylum after you got caught, you had about 5 or 6 other countries that you should have stopped in and claimed asylum. But instead, you came to the United States. And it's the same thing here when we look at these people. If those other countries are willing to take them in, then they need to stay there. There's no reason for them to come here into the United States.
Should not be held accountable. You know, Reverend, I'm Jewish, but when Bernie Madoff got in big trouble for financial crimes, a Jew himself, nobody held me accountable for that.
A Jew himself.
Ted Kaczynski, you know, the Unabomber, Polish, but nobody held all the Polish people in the United States accountable.
Because he was one man. He wasn't a fraction of our society that ended up taking the largest fraud scheme in history, dude.
For what he did. And so in America, again, you have the freedom of choice. You make decisions. When those decisions are against the law, you get held accountable as an individual.
Except the government of Minnesota wasn't willing to hold them accountable. You ended up having state employees come out and alert them to the fraud scheme, and they did literally nothing about it. They even threatened to punish those employees. And so while this man sits here and tries to tell you that you shouldn't be blaming this population, well, why didn't you want to get seen for blaming that population when all of that fraud was taking place on your watch? And the truth is, you are so concerned with your position that you just want to hold on to it because you can't offend your freaking voter base. You can't offend all of those people that are here inside of the United States illegally, while your constituents end up being the ones that bear the grunt of the issues. That money is getting taken away from them, should be going to them, should have been going to feeding those families, but instead it ended up getting fraud and sent away overseas to Somalia. I'm not blind 84 coming in, gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. Thank you very much, ma'am, as we continue to get into this. And we can also look at, which is going to lead into another portion of the show, the policing over inside of Minneapolis. Fox McCloud says he wasn't doing it in the name of Poland. No, he was not. Nor did he put out a video, nor did all of the people put out a video claiming that, Oklahoma City ended up, belonging to the Polish people and all of this other crap. None of that stuff ended up happening. The man was deranged. He built a big bomb and blew up it's just mind numbing that people can make these comparisons. This article came out in February of this year from the police chief. Remember the police chief that came out famously speaking in Somali, talking to the people, telling them to blow whistles, telling them, well, maybe not blow whistles, but call 911 if you feel like somebody is being kidnapped. And we all know exactly what the hell he was talking about. If you can't identify who they are, make sure you're doing all of that stuff. Well, when did he get brought in office? Because George Floyd ended up coming back onto the scene this weekend because Derek Chauvin on Friday inside a prison ended up getting shanked numerous times. They tried to kill him over inside a prison. Magically, as all of this crap over in Minneapolis is happening, they try to kill Derek Chauvin. Well, this guy ends up coming onto the scene. I want to say it was in 2022. Yep, 2022. I was right. He became the chief of police. And he ends up coming with all sorts of different social justice programs and things like that for the people of Minneapolis. And he was formerly over in Newark, New Jersey. And I almost did an entire post on this guy prior to coming in here, because he ended up retweeting about this law enforcement officer that ended up getting killed, a detective, in the earlier portions of this year over inside of New Jersey. He ended up getting shot by a 14-year-old kid. His partner got shot as well. Detective ends up getting killed. Partner ends up getting hurt. They're in this area over inside of New Jersey looking for illegal weapons, investigating it, and they're working alongside the ATF during this investigation. And a 14-year-old, the moment he pulls up into the area, ends up unloading, killing the detective and wounding the freaking driver or the passenger. They didn't even have the chance to get out of the vehicle. Two law enforcement officers didn't have a chance to get out of the vehicle. And then I do a little bit of research, and as it turns out that this is literally half a mile away from like Little Somalia over inside of New Jersey. And there's only a couple hundred Somali immigrants over inside of there. And because he's a minor that's being charged, he's a minor, number one, so his information is not getting released. But now he's like, that minor is getting charged federally. We don't even know like who this guy is or who else was there. 5 other people ended up getting detained that night. No information ends up getting put out on that. It's like they're trying to hide what's going on. Freaking disgusting. So yeah. He ends up bringing up other things. Minneapolis had not been known for high levels of serious crime. The murder of George Floyd, coupled with the social disruptions of the pandemic, changed that. The city saw an explosion of violence, including the burning of a police precinct. In just 1 year, more than 650 people were shot, 3 times the pre-pandemic average. That's right. And do you know what happened in the years prior to that? Mass immigration of Somalis that were coming in. Hundreds and thousands every single year for well over a decade were pouring into Minneapolis, pouring in there. And yes, they are not the largest population by race or anything, but they're clearly causing a lot of issues. 3AM Ford says, Matt, have you seen the streamer going around handing out machetes and liquor to the homeless? He calls it keeping the homeless in the streets. No, I haven't. That would cause my blood to freaking boil. And I also understand, after being in law enforcement and going around, that homeless people are subject to a lot of heinous crimes. A lot of them. Women are like damn near 100% chance of getting raped if they're homeless for over like 6 months, something like that. Like it's unreal. And I understand why they would do that, but at the same time, a lot of people that are homeless, like the vast majority of homeless people, long-term homeless people are addicted to drugs. And so you're handing out dangerous weapons to people that are addicted to drugs, that are worried that like everybody's out to get them, everybody's out to kill them. Go find yourself a tweaker. If they're, shooting up heroin or whatever, or smoking fentanyl, like, yeah, they're just going to take a nap, right? Probably die OD, foam over at the mouth, and nobody's going to do anything. But the problem is, for me, those people that are on those like stimulants that go out and then commit violent acts because they've been up for days and they're absolutely delusional. Anyways, just thought I'd give you the background on that police chief over inside of Minnesota and why it's so ridiculous. And it's important to understand because guess what? Yeah, the people in the great city of Minneapolis ended up figuring out where ICE was sleeping, the hotel they were at. Now you have a police presence outside of there. And just like over in Charlotte, they're trying to keep them awake all night long. Yeah, you guys get the idea, right? So, with that being said, with their location given away, how likely do you think it is that people are now posted up outside of those blocks around that particular like Hilton Garden Inn hotel and are waiting for the ICE agents to leave? Because over the weekend, they ended up starting their massive surge, Operation something or other, to go and start deporting Somalis from in and around Minneapolis. And because of that, we now have this taking place. The other place that they're riding and have basically a constant presence is over at the airport. They're staged outside of the airport because they're just straight up flying folks out of there in handcuffs. And so you have people shutting down the roadway, conducting prayers, things like that, or right in the middle of the road, and they're being guarded and protected by the local police department. The last I saw anyways, it might have ended over the last like 48 hours, but I highly doubt it. It's one of those things that I don't even bother looking into these protesters because there's so much corruption in this area that I just feel that I would rather dig into the corruption than the stupidity of these protesters. There's lots of other people that are going to cover that. I want to stay focused on how these dang corrupt politicians have been screwing over the American people. Manderdander says, Matt, you should Google, I can't even pronounce that word, or cousin marriage among Muslims versus the rest of the world. The IQ is related to this. Pakistan is the most, is almost 70%. It's quantity over quality for the conquering. Yeah, it's first cousin marriages are through the roof. First cousin marriages are through the roof. And that is very common. That's not even something I have to Google. I would have to Google it to give you the exact percentages coming out of certain like countries, but it is extremely high in these Muslim dominant countries to be marrying first cousins. And most of the time they're actually arranged marriages, believe it or not. So I want you to think about this. It would be, me and my brother getting married and having kids and being like, you know what, daughter, you're going to marry my brother's child and you guys are going to live a long and happy life. And then that repeats over generations. And what do you think that causes? Right? I remember being over in the Middle East, and granted we have higher vaccine rates, and I don't even believe, like, I have my own issues with vaccines here in the United States. But over in the Middle East, dude, you're talking about people. I remember being inside of Iraq. I was telling these stories yesterday, where you have people that are like chained up, that are mentally ill, that they'll chain up in like backyards, literally like shackled like they were slaves, like staked into the ground, running around like a freaking dog, like chained up in backyards. Like that is the education level that ends up coming in to like some of these societies. And you wonder why things like that are so predominant over there. And in my opinion, it has a lot to do with inbreeding. And that's just my personal take on it. And we're not even talking about 9-year-old marriages, right? 13 Fist says, hey, Battle, if Trump didn't send the Taliban as money, then how they're supposed to maintain our equipment Biden left for them? Are we sending them parts? See, I actually think that Biden ended up doing that for a reason. And I didn't believe it until I ended up having a conversation with a friend. Biden, if you really think and analyze over how ridiculous the withdrawal from Afghanistan was, and then you remember and you think back, one of Biden's last trips overseas aboard Air Force Two was going over into China, where his little nut job son crackhead son ended up running off into China. And Biden's like, I don't know what he was doing. And I have vouched for it. I know other SF guys that have personally vouched for it, that have said that we had Chinese miners that were being escorted in and around Afghanistan as far back as 2012. And Afghanistan was opening up different mineral mines and things like that. And the very first country, the next day, the very first country on the planet to recognize the Taliban as the official government was China. We know that there is a bunch of money being funneled and filtered through a bunch of like Biden family accounts coming from China. And then we leave all of that military weapons and equipment over there for the Taliban. We also know that there was an agreement in place that the Taliban wasn't supposed to enter into Kabul until after the United States ended up fully and completely withdrawing. I remember seeing it, and I wish I kept it. Literally a room filled, like a room the size of my basement, just filled with brand new $100 bills from the United States government that we were paying the Taliban off to try to stay out. To me, it certainly seemed like that pullout in the horrible manner may have possibly benefited the Biden family because of China, who's currently trying to take over mining operations and all sorts of stuff. Like I said, they took over the world's largest lithium mine over inside of Nigeria. It wouldn't surprise me. And look at the amount that they end up producing. So it wouldn't surprise me if Biden is actually was raking in money just based off of that. Everybody ends up calling it a botched withdrawal. And I'm of the belief at this point that it wasn't even a botched withdrawal. It was planned to go so horribly, and we meant to leave so much stuff behind for that specific reason. I don't think he intended, I think all of the chaos that allowed all of these undocumented, unvetted people to come into the United States, because of that withdrawal, I don't think that was planned. I think that was just a symptom of it. And we're focusing on symptoms instead of looking at it being wait a minute, why would you do this? Why would you go against the Joint Chief of Staff? When he's telling you that this is a horrible idea, why didn't you have all of these things properly prepared? Why didn't our troops know all of why? Absolutely ridiculous as far as I'm concerned as we look into it. And over inside of New York, Minnesota, I want you to remember, not New York, Minnesota, over inside of Minneapolis, over inside of Minnesota, this is actually coming out of Rochester. I want you to think about this. About all of the politicians screaming how illegal everything is that ICE and CBP agents are doing, and how many people are getting arrested because they're listening to these elected politicians that are playing games with words.
Leave him alone. Leave him alone. You guys cannot do that. That's illegal. Call 911. Call 911. They're doing kidnapping. That's illegal. Leave him alone. Leave him alone.
Smile me, sir. Smile me. So notice how she's calling it kidnapping. Same words that the police chief ended up using over in Minneapolis that ended up blasting it out, and how they're just up there in these people's faces going off on all that stuff. I think absolutely the politicians are engineering, know exactly what they're doing, just like the Seditious Six did, in order to do all of this crap. Fraud case.
Based on what we have found so far, we believe that the Somali fraud operation in Minnesota is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud in American history. We believe that we have only scratched the very top of the surface of how deep this goes.
Single greatest fraud case, and they've only scratched the surface. It is the tip of the iceberg. And I think what he's referencing is the different types of stuff that I have hinted at throughout this broadcast and throughout my previous two, where you have city officials, where you have state government officials that were aware of these programs, that were aware that this money was taking off, that are getting money funneled into their campaign after they're cutting checks to these people, and that they're actually doing like promos during their campaign for these different fraud businesses. That's a problem.
And you're familiar with all the scams with pretending that children have autism who are not in fact autistic, with pretending to enroll people in food programs when in fact nobody was ever enrolled, and engaging in massive fraud, lying, and theft and grift on a scale we've never seen before in American history. The total bill, the total tab for this is going to be far beyond the numbers we've already seen reported. We believe the state government is fully complicit in this scheme.
That is probably one of the biggest truth bombs he just dropped. They believe the state government is fully complicit. Think about that.
And we believe that what we are going to uncover is going to shock the American people. Look, based on the records that we already have, this is a significant undercount, by the way. 75% of the Somali population in Minnesota is on welfare. But that's likely a significant undercount of just...
Now, they like to tell you that they pay their taxes and they contribute. 75% of the Somali population there is on welfare. 75%.
How much of a financial burden the Somali refugee population is imposing on this country.
That is appalling. He came out and he just accused and said that they believe that the government is complicit in that stuff. If that sounds weird to you, take the case of Abdulmat Mohammed, 28, who is charged by complaint with kidnapping a minor and kidnapping and rape. Listen to this. The Somali national in Minnesota is charged with raping a minor and multiple adult women before being detained, only to quickly be released by a local court, after which he committed yet another rape. This horrific case illustrates how left-wing, soft-on-crime policies and vetting failures put innocent people in dire risk. If Minnesota will not act to protect its own people, the Department of Justice will do it for them. That's from Pam Bondi. Allegations are sickening, multiple kidnappings and rapes, including minors, and they happen to state that had chosen ideology over public safety. Minnesota's radical soft-on-crime policies create an environment where the predators, blah, 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 blah. On December 3rd, 2025, federal law enforcement received information concerning violent kidnappings and rapes committed by Mohammed. Law enforcement and the U.S. Attorney's Office immediately investigated and found that, as set forth in the complaint, there's probable cause to believe that he committed a string of disturbing sexual assaults, several of them gang rapes, and at least 5 victims between 2017 and 2025, many following the same pattern. He faces a mandatory minimum of 20 years of imprisonment and a sentence of up to life for his crimes. On December of 2017, Mohammed and 2 others kidnapped and raped a 15-year-old girl, minor victim 1, who met Mohammed online on the social media platform Snapchat. He agreed to give her a ride and picked her up in St. Paul. Instead of driving her to her requested location, he drove her to Minneapolis, where he parked his car. Suddenly, 2 more men got in the car. One of them was holding a short-barreled silver revolver. The man pointed the gun at minor victim 1's head and said, "Give my brother some head or I'll blow your head off." And so it continues. And again, people like this being re-released onto the streets to continue to reoffend, and the government doesn't want to do a dang thing about it. Remember how I told you that the blue-collar workers over inside of Charlotte were taking it the hardest because none of them were able to get work, none of them were able to get jobs because they were being underbid and all of the construction sites are empty, and that they're going to get phone calls and things are going to start coming back. All of that crap is going to happen because once all of these illegals stop showing up for work, well, guess what? Somebody's got to do the work or they're going to fall behind and they're going to default on their contracts to build. Listen to this guy.
So we've had ICE and DHS down in Louisiana for about a week now. And as a business owner, I've been running my own construction company since I was 18 years old. I'm 27 now. We do painting, roofing, drywall, tile, ceramics, trim, molding, carpentry, flooring, concrete, a little bit of everything. I'm seeing firsthand just the shockwave them boys are sending across the state. No immigrants want to go to work. None of them want to even ride in a truck like mine with a ladder rack on it. And it is so amazing. I've got more calls in the last week than I've gotten in the last 3 months. I got 20 calls in one day. GC scrambling to try and finish projects. Halfway through, these guys not showing up to work.
You guys hear that? More calls in one day than he gets in like 3 months or whatever it was, man. Dude is like scrambling to take care of business. Like people that tell you that like illegal immigration isn't a problem and that they are not overrunning businesses, that they're doing jobs that Americans don't want to do, they're full of it. Here's a man that built his own business, that's been struggling for years. Yeah, he's hiring. Built his own business, and he's clearly been getting undercut, clearly been getting screwed over by illegals or companies that are hiring illegals. That to me is the real issue. Companies that are hiring illegals, paying in cash, paying underneath the table, screwing guys like him over. That lie is being perpetrated left and right, saying that good, honest, hardworking Americans don't want to do these jobs. That's BS. This guy right here is a testament to why that is garbage and that they're lying to you. These people are 1000% taking good American jobs that American taxpayers absolutely want to do. And in the meantime, that all of that crap is going down. I want you guys to think about it. You've got people that are rioting. Remember how I told you about like that rape guy that's over there raping like women over time, raping 15-year-old girls, gang raping women, all of that other crap. And look how people are treating ICE.
This is really the first we've seen of these federal agents in recent weeks since much of Border Patrol left the area. Now, things are calm out here in this neighborhood in Elgin, but it was certainly tense between protesters and federal agents. At some points, we even saw clouds of tear gas taking over this area. You could see in the video, crowd there with canisters of tear gas being deployed, and even some children were in the crowd when that happened. Now, Elgin police tells us this actually all started this morning.
This is the reporting, by the way. Crowds of tear gas, children. What are those stupid parents doing taking their children there? Let's ask that question in the first place. Why are you running around with your kids while tear gas is being chucked? And he failed to mention, which you can clearly see in the opening scene of this video, and I mute it and I can even slow it down here. No, not quality. Let me just slow it down for you. Let's slow it down to 50%. And you can clearly see crap being thrown at these agents. Why are you bringing your kids and why are you reporting this as if it's not a real freaking issue, my friend?
Tells us this actually all started this morning around 9, as they say a federal agent called the department to report that they were involved in a traffic crash while conducting immigration enforcement near West Highland Avenue. Now, police say the agents reported that a person fled that area, ended up here near Maple Lane. Elgin police says shortly after that, several residents called them about agents being in the area, stating that they had a warrant. There was also reports of shots fired on this block. Elgin police determined that was not the case. They did determine that federal agents dispersed chemical agents, and local police had to provide medical treatment to those who were exposed to it before they left the area. Now, it's not clear if federal agents actually detained anyone. We did reach out to DHS for details.
Like, how do you not report that crap? How do you not sit there and report it? No, you're saying snowballs. What you forget is how cold it is. They're looking for ice. They're looking for chunks of ice that are hard as rocks that can break out windows, that can injure people, that can kill people, that can seriously disable them for life when hit at the appropriate speed in the appropriate location. Serious bodily injury or death can result from them grabbing those massive ice balls and chucking them at those officers. And you've got people in this country that are pissed off that rapists are getting deported. You even heard, dude, they were involved in a freaking collision. And then the guy ended up running over into that neighborhood. And then the call came into police, so somebody's monitoring it, and then they alert that massive crowd that's over there going after him. Soul says the best thing we can do for our country is to clean up our government from all of this corruption. Absolutely. We should. We should figure out who these crooked politicians are. They're allowing these things to happen and throw their butts in jail. But you know, the mainstream media would have a giggle fit, or not a giggle fit, a crap fit over this entire thing, screaming about how they're federal, Trump's acting like a dictator. He's going after his enemies. He's now going after good-hearted, undocumented Americans, the same type of crap. But picture when politicians go after it. Senator Kelly, that guy, Senator Kelly, his butt's on the hot seat. I think we're going to hear this week whether or not he ends up actually getting called back to active duty and court-martialed over this Sedacious Six manner. And when that happens, you bet your butt the media is going to have a heyday. I haven't met a competent officer from the military yet that didn't know what was going on. When I got asked about that Sedacious Six video by a civilian, during a news interview a week ago or 2 weeks ago, the guy's like, so what do you think they were trying to do? What's your take on it? And I just asked very clearly, what was your initial thought when you heard that video? What did you think as a layperson as far as the military is concerned when you heard that video? Well, I thought that they were, speaking to the military about disobeying orders from Trump. Exactly. So if the layperson sees it and hears it that way, what do you think the other lay people, i.e. your privates and the vast majority of the military, are actually thinking? Probably that same dang thing. So I would bet that he ends up getting brought up on freaking charges.
I look at the numbers every day. On Friday, I looked at the numbers. There's over 62,000 children found by the Trump administration. Children that weren't even being looked for under the Biden administration. President Trump saved over 62,000 children's lives. Some of these children were in sex trafficking, we found. Some were in forced labor. Some were being mistreated. I can't even discuss some of the mistreatment we found out about. President Trump, again, proves why he's the greatest president.
62,000 children found during these investigations, sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, all of those things. 62,000 kids. I was over on a debate on TikTok with this lady that was studying to be an attorney. Maybe some of you guys heard it. Maybe some of you guys caught it on, I think it was like Friday I was doing this. And she's like, no, these people, it's just fine. No, when you don't enforce the law, then you encourage people to come across the border. And part of those people coming across the border is rape and human trafficking. And they will sit there and they will accuse us of not supporting these illegal immigrants that are coming here into the United States. And when you bring up human trafficking, when you bring up rape, when you bring up 62,000 children, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to pretend like that's not a problem, or why is it you only care about these kids because it fits your cause? No, because it's wrong. Don't you dare put words in my mouth. And if you don't start enforcing that law or immigration laws in the country, then we're going to have a way more than 62,000. And just think about it. If just this year they found 62,000 kids, think about how many are actually out there right now being violently raped, forced into labor, threatened to get killed if their families don't pay the ransom money that the cartel is holding on to. 62,000 children. Look up rape trees on the U.S.-Mexican border. Look it up. Look up rape trees on the U.S.-Mexican border. Really, take a look into it. I'm going to save, I have more information on the January 6th pipe bomber. Independent investigator went over there and actually spoke to the family of the January 6th pipe bomber and ended up discovering that his one, family does say that he is autistic, and two, all right, his grandmother ended up coming out saying that he has the mind of a 16-year-old. And this goes directly in line with all of the other stuff that I've been saying about him when we see his online presence and everything else. It most certainly appears to me like he was being groomed. And so for the first time in 2 years, I think it's been about 2 years since I had her on the show, on Wednesday morning, I'm going to bring back BX over on X, who is an expert when it comes to like the radical and the rapid change that these people are seeing, and when it comes to converting people online. She's recognized internationally as an expert when it comes to child trafficking. She's an expert on the 764 network that we've been seeing coming out of the FBI and everybody else. I see a correlation here that this guy was probably recruited and groomed online based off of his history, based off of everything that we know. And so she's going to end up coming on the show Wednesday morning for us to discuss that. And we're going to be going over that. So you guys look forward to that Wednesday morning when we're going to be going over the violent freaking crap that's taking place in this country. And I think that everything that's currently taking place inside of the United States, in my opinion, is having the opposite effect. You know, that the left wants. They have been claiming that like white Americans are racist for years. Donald Trump is a Nazi for years. And people are finally waking up and starting to see through their crap. And if you don't believe me, here you go.
Listen, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it loud and clear. We don't care that Somalians are being deported. They're not our concern. See, I don't have no hate for nobody, right?
Same.
But I do understand that we have groups over here or groups that aspire to come to America that don't like black Americans. Yep. Because, see, we the great people of society. So when they come over here, they already have some type of disdain towards us, and we ain't did nothing to these people. See, I've been to Minnesota. And when I was in Minnesota visiting my son, because he live up there, man, these Somalians are everywhere and they rude. They act like you not there. When you speak to them, they look at you like you foreign. And I'm like, man, you in my country. Why you looking all stank? So
I'm telling you guys, if you don't believe me, that's what it is. And that's the direction this country is going. We're sick of it. Not only are we sick of it, I think the rest of America, everybody in general, is sick of all of this freaking garbage. And I don't think Trump was wrong. And I think he was absolutely right when he ended up stating that we don't want them here in this country. And it's if anything, it's actually bringing Americans back together as far as I'm concerned. In my opinion, it's bringing Americans back together. Americans are tired of this garbage. Americans are tired of the illegal immigration. They're tired of the system being scammed. They're tired of their tax dollars going overseas especially when you're talking about raising Somali militias so that some guy can run for president of an area that nobody gives two craps about and getting no competition contracts that he gets to bid on, just given to him by the state government because somebody that he's in cahoots with is also happens to be in the state government. We're tired of that crap. We're tired of that scamming. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll see you guys again later on this evening. Peace, love, happiness, and God bless. I'm out of here.
The people from different countries that are not friendly to us and countries that are out of control themselves. Countries like Somalia that have virtually no government, no military, no police. All they do is go around killing each other. Then they come into our country and tell us how to run our country. We don't want them.
What are you talking about?
You got to talk up.
She said how many countries?
Is there a list?
Well, I guess we gave you 19, right? There's probably more than that.
Is that what you mean when you mean third world countries, those 19?
No, I don't think they're all third world, but in many cases they are third world. They're not good countries. They're very crime-ridden countries. They're countries that don't do a good job. They're countries that don't register from the standpoint